For most of human history, old people weren't supposed to exist. Not rare. Not unusual. Statistically improbable. Yet they did exist. And their existence may be the single strangest thing about our species. Picture a camp 40,000 years ago. A fire crackles in the dusk. Children chase each other through the smoke. Hunters return with meat slung over their shoulders. And sitting near the fire, wrapped in animal hide, is someone with white hair. Someone whose teeth are worn flat. Someone old enough to remember a different world. That person should not be there. By every brutal rule of nature, they should have been gone decades ago. And yet across the deep prehistory of our species, again and again, archaeologists keep finding them. Old bones. Worn joints. Healed injuries that took years to mend. So here's the better question buried inside the title. Not just did ancient humans know their grandparents, but how did grandparents even survive long enough to be known? You've probably heard the old line that prehistoric humans rarely lived past 30. It sounds correct. It feels correct. It is also deeply, beautifully misleading. That number is an average dragged down by a horrifying truth. A huge percentage of ancient infants died before their 5th birthday. When you average a dead toddler with a 6-year-old elder, you get a number that describes neither. It describes a statistical ghost. The real picture is stranger. If an ancient human survived childhood, they had a genuinely decent shot at reaching what we'd call old age. Bones from Neanderthal sites, Upper Paleolithic burials, and forager populations studied today all whisper the same thing. Grandparents existed. And not just one or two scattered miracles. Enough of them to matter. Enough of them to change everything. Anthropologists Rachel Kasperi and Sang-Hee Lee studied this directly in the 2000s. They looked at fossil teeth from across human evolution. Teeth wear down at a predictable rate, so they can estimate age at death. What they found was striking. Around 30,000 years ago, the ratio of older adults to younger adults exploded. Suddenly, there were far more grandparent-aged humans walking the earth than ever before. Something had shifted. And whatever it was, it lit a fuse under our species. Now imagine you're a child in that world. You wake before sunrise inside a shelter of hide and bone. The adults are already gone, tracking game across cold ground. But someone stayed behind. Someone with slow hands and sharp eyes. Someone who knows which berries make you sick and which ones make you sleep. Someone who remembers the last time the river flooded because they were a child the time before that. That person is your grandmother. And in a world without books, without writing, without Google, she is the most valuable hard drive on Earth. This is the heart of what scientists call the grandmother hypothesis. Proposed by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes after studying the Hadza people of Tanzania, it argues something audacious. It argues that grandmothers, specifically, may have helped shape the entire trajectory of our species. Here's how the logic runs. Human women are biologically strange. Almost no other mammal lives decades past their reproductive years. Most animals breed until they die. Humans don't. Women routinely live 30, 40, even 50 years after menopause. That's evolutionarily bizarre. From a cold genetic standpoint, a body that can't reproduce should be a body nature stops investing in. So why do older human women exist at all? Hawk's answer was elegant. Because they were never useless. They were gathering food, carrying toddlers, processing tubers, watching fires, and freeing younger mothers to have more children sooner. A grandmother wasn't a retired human. She was infrastructure. Think about that for a second. In a world where every calorie was earned with sweat, an extra adult who could feed children was a quiet superpower. Children with living grandmothers survived at higher rates. Mothers with living mothers had more babies. And the genes for living long, healthy post-reproductive lives got passed down again and again. We didn't just tolerate old age. We selected for it. But grandmothers are only half the story. What about grandfathers? For a long time, anthropology kind of forgot about them. But the picture is filling in. Older men in forager societies often kept hunting well into their 60s, though with less stamina and more strategy. They became the trackers, the toolmakers, the negotiators, the storytellers. In modern hunter-gatherer groups studied by anthropologists, the most successful hunters are often not the youngest. They're the men in their 40s and 50s. Experience, it turns out, kills more animals than raw speed does. And here's the important part. That experience was the internet of the Paleolithic. Every elder was a living library. Where the herds migrate when the snow comes early. Which cave floods in spring. How to set a broken bone. What the sky looked like the year the volcano erupted 2 valleys over. This sounds fake, but oral histories among Aboriginal Australians appear to preserve memories of coastlines that vanished beneath rising seas more than 7,000 years ago. Stories. Carried by voice. Generation to generation. Across more than 300 human lifetimes. That is what a grandparent is at the species level. A bridge across centuries. Now here's where it gets stranger. Some researchers argue this is why human childhood is so absurdly long. A chimp is basically self-sufficient by age 5. A human at 5 can barely tie a shoe. We spend nearly 2 decades being expensive, exhausting little sponges. And the reason might be that we had something no other ape had. We had elders with the time, patience, and accumulated knowledge to teach us. Take a second to feel how weird that is. Our childhoods are long because our old age is long. The two ends of human life are quietly holding hands. Pause for a moment. If you had one question you could ask a grandparent who lived 30,000 years ago, what would it be? Drop it in the comments. I read them, and the answers people give to this one always surprise me. Now back to the fire. Because the story has a darker chapter we shouldn't skip. Not every ancient human knew their grandparents. Or Neanderthals, the evidence is more complicated. They lived hard lives. Their skeletons are riddled with healed fractures, the kind you'd see on modern rodeo riders. Many didn't make it to 40. But some did. A famous Neanderthal known as the Old Man of La Chapelle lived into his 60s by current estimates. He had lost most of his teeth. His spine was twisted with arthritis. Someone had to soften his food and care for him. Someone did. For years. That skeleton is one of the most quietly moving artifacts in all of paleoanthropology. It is proof that even our cousin species understood something profound. That an old, broken human is still worth keeping alive. That memory has weight. That a person is more than their usefulness. Kaspari and Lee's research suggests that modern humans, Homo sapiens, simply produced more elders than the Neanderthals did. More grandparents. More accumulated knowledge. More overlap between generations. And some scientists think this might be one of the quiet reasons we are still here, and they are not. We didn't just outcompete them with sharper tools. We may have outcompeted them with sharper memories. Now imagine the scene one more time. A Paleolithic child sits in the dirt holding a stone. An old woman with cloudy eyes guides her small hands. Strike here, not there. Angle the flake this way. Listen to the sound it makes. That child will one day teach her own grandchildren the same motion. And so a single skill, refined across 40,000 years, ends up in a museum case with your name on the visitor list. You are standing at the end of an unbroken chain of grandparents. Every single one of them, without exception, lived long enough to pass something on. If even one link had snapped, you would not be reading this. That is not poetic exaggeration. That is just arithmetic. So did ancient humans know their grandparents? The answer is yes, more often than we ever assumed. Not always. Not everyone. But often enough to rewire what it means to be human. Often enough that our long childhoods, our long memories, and our long lives all trace back to the same quiet revolution. The revolution of staying. The revolution of not dying when nature expected you to. The revolution of being useful by being old. Tonight, somewhere, a grandparent will tell a child a story they will never forget. A recipe. A warning. A joke. A piece of someone who died before that child was born. That moment is older than agriculture. Older than cities. Older than language as we know it. It is one of the oldest human things we still do. And every time it happens, the fire at that ancient camp flickers back to life, just for a second, in someone's living room. If this rewired how you think about your own grandparents, hit the like button so more people find this video. Subscribe to Hominin for more strange, true stories about who we used to be and why we became this. And tell me in the comments, did you know your grandparents, and what's one thing they taught you that you'd never have learned anywhere else? Next time, we'll dig into something even stranger. Why human babies are born so absurdly underdeveloped, and what it cost our ancestors to make us this way. Stay curious. The past isn't behind you. It's inside you.